All right, everybody. We are back again for season 2 of the Coach's Compass. This your boy, Coach Coop. My boy, Coach Jay, can't be with us today again because he is just a busy guy, right? But we continue to bring on cool guests from all over the world. So remember to hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we continue to have cool guests and just continue to have this thing grow. We got our boy, Coach Ian, out of Delray, Florida, with us today. He is helping people and get stronger, and he is a CEO of Marco Training Systems. Coach, thank you for being here today and welcome to the Coach's Compass.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I know the pretty common question that you probably get is, how are you helping people get better and get stronger? What are you doing that's doing exactly what you said?
Yeah, so I do a lot of things. I work online, I work in person, and I mentor other coaches. Mentoring other coaches is big for me in terms of kind of getting a bigger reach. If you can help out a coach who helps 10 of his clients, that's a big deal. So I use mobility, I use breathing, I use strength and conditioning, I use plyometrics. I think at this point in my career, what I'm kind of known for is blending together all the different methods and finding a way to put them together in a cohesive manner that actually results in progress in many ways, instead of what a lot of people do in that circumstance where they just put a bunch of stuff together and get progress in no ways. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
How are you getting to be able to mentor other coaches? Are coaches reaching out to you, or are you reaching out to other coaches? And how hard is it to kind of get coaches to break out of, the mold of what they already know and kind of feeling like they've already figured it out, to kind of learning different ways and methods to coach their own clients that they have themselves and learn from another coach? Because, we talk about it all the time. Like, we want people to be coachable, but you know how it is in the strength and conditioning field, in the fitness world. Sometimes as coaches, we don't end up being coachable ourselves. We think we know it all and what we're doing is the best method. So how are you breaking through and getting into those?
Yeah, I think the best way to break through to them is with results. So whether they're seeing, your testimonials, whether they're seeing your clients changing physically, whether they're seeing other coaches talk about you. So, hey, I started training with Ian, and like, I have a mentee right now who literally, I'll turn around and her session is like a version of her program that I'm training her with. So it's just like, and then her clients get great results and she's like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. It's like, all right, cool. So like, it's easy to break through like that. But at the end of the day, man, there's a lot of coaches that aren't ready to change, especially long-term coaches. Some of them are even blind to the fact that the things that they're doing aren't necessarily working or are so far from optimal. Even some of them could be responsible for some of like the little niggles and injuries that a lot of people, have, it's a perfect example. Like the other day I was training and someone had this like 100-pound woman throwing an 18-pound med ball. So like, again, you're not training power. The girl like pulled her neck while she threw the med ball. So like, you're not even a positive, or you're not even a net negative or neutral. You know what I mean? So it's like, but like, that person needs to be able to go, well, why did she feel like that? Could I be doing something better? And I think, especially as an older trainer, sometimes these people have 10 clients back to back. So are you really going to go after your 11th client when like you're eating your chicken and rice and go, man, like, what did I do wrong today? Like, what could have got better? So not just in training and anything in life, to actually take the time to fully self-reflect. Like, even with my fantasy lineup, it's like, as absolutely depressed as I am on Sunday night these days, this season's been tough. I have to go back and look like, man, why did I choose to start Javonte Williams 2 weeks in a row? That was a terrible idea. And I could have started Rome last week, So, but in life, I don't think that a lot of people actually do that, where they look back and they go, hey, like, I need to hold myself accountable and actually look at what I'm doing. And when it comes to programming and mobility and breath work and like all these different things that I'm meshing together, it's essential for me to look back and go, hey, that thing worked for, Cindy Lou, but like, when I did it with Michael, like, did that work for him? Like, was that the best choice of my time? And like, actually having that process of refining what you're doing, I don't think a lot of coaches are really doing that.
Yeah, because you talk about it yourself. How are you going back and reflecting on it? Like, what pieces are you kind of like seeing again? Because we're in a very results-driven industry. But what is like your self-reflection that you're doing to kind of see what pieces fit where and holding yourself accountable to?
Yeah, so I think the feedback from the client is often maybe undervalued in some ways. Like, for example, like, if my client goes, hey, like this is a real example. Hey, I just went to Paris and I traveled all through Europe and I had chronic back pain. When I first met you, I couldn't sit. I was on trains, airplanes, hiking. I climbed a rock with no rope. I did all these things. And then I look at her posture picture, and her posture picture looks a little bit better. I'm not going, man, I wish her posture picture looked better. I'm going, I literally helped her with all of her goals. She lost 9 pounds. She looks better. She's the strongest she's ever been. So like those are the process that I'm looking back on. What is the client really accomplishing? What were their original goals? I think especially with more knowledge as a coach, it's easy to make your goals their goals. So it's like, well, I want this standing posture picture. I want this many degrees of hip IR for you. But listen, if they can climb that rock with 10 degrees less than I want of hip IR, I could care less because they're happy. And it goes back to what's the original goal. And that's why your assessment in your first session is so important, because you should be sitting down and listening to them and saying like, hey, let's like take 10 minutes at least to get to know each other. You know, I send you a survey ahead of time so that it saves time also. And I can go through exactly who you are and looking or what you're looking to accomplish. So then we can actually focus on that stuff. And that's my North Star is like, are we getting the things done that you wanted to get done, not just the things that I wanted to get done? And then the program is really a mixture of what they want and what they need.
Yeah. On you, and you talk about your first time, like that assessment and everything. What is that onboarding process like for you? Because I mean, I would love to know, especially for a former athlete, you know, someone that is still currently an athlete, or even the general population, like what are some of those common things that you're kind of getting on those onboarding process you see that people are missing that are hurting the way they move and being able to move beneficial and feeling these back pains, knee pains, ankle. I mean, obviously there's former injuries that they had that could play a part in it, but what are some things that you're seeing on the onboarding process that's just like, man, like if we had this, like this would really help, you know, people in the long run.
So are you asking about what is my actual assessment process from a coaching standpoint? Or are you asking about what is the person who is being assessed? Like what am I seeing in that person?
I guess it's a two-part question, right? What are you doing for your general onboarding? And then like what are like you said, the second part.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so we set the time. I always have someone pay ahead, tell them 24-hour cancellation notice, like be business like, kind of set the tone. Like, hey, you're not coming to just be willy-nilly, like this is my time. You know, that's a really important thing, especially for young coaches. I send them a survey ahead of time that's really detailed, has questions like, what's your stress level, 1 to 10? You know, 10 being it's crazy, 1 being easy. You know, how are you sleeping? How many hours on a scale of 1 to 10? How good is that sleep? You know, what are your goals? What are your past injuries? Like things like that. So that way I have like this document before I even go in, and I'm able to like do a quick review of it. And then we sit down and talk about it for the first 10 to 15 minutes. And I'll ask other questions that are, again, super important that coaches just don't understand. Like, how do you like to learn? Like, do you think that watching videos and learning from video would be something that you're able to do? Do you often feel overwhelmed if you get too much? So like, again, with me, I can make this like masterpiece of a program. But if the person only has the bandwidth for 7 exercises and I gave them 21 new ones on Monday, they're going to be overwhelmed and end up doing 0 exercises. So it's that communication up front that really changes the process and makes it to truly individualize the experience for the client that's standing in front of you. Then once we're in the assessment, I'm going to do the classics, the posture, front, side, and back, just to get a baseline, especially for like body composition. I'll have them do like, it's not very accurate, but like the standing body fat assessment. And then the in body, I think is what it's called. And then I'm going to also have them do toe touch, front, side, and back. I'm going to have them do squat, front, side, and back. I'm going to have them do kickstand hinge, which is like a number 1 exercise that it kind of like basically goes into training, because the kickstand hinge is, you know, basically like what you would think of like a B stance hinge. And for me, it really opens up the backside of the pelvis and promotes internal rotation. And it's kind of like a huge progression in all of my clients. So it's something that I'll video the first day and like emphasize like, hey, you're going to leave today with something to start working on immediately. And then I'll also look at shoulder rotation, IR, ER, hip rotation, IR, ER. Sometimes I'll do hip flexion, but I'm basically getting that from the squat and the toe touch. And then I'm also going to look at anything that's really specific to them. For example, if there's someone who broke their wrist, I'm going to look at a wrist CAR. So that's a controlled articular rotation. It's basically like a joint circle. So it's going to assess exactly what their wrist can do without cheating with their elbow or their shoulder. Same thing for like, you know, you have a broken toe. We might go through toe piano or toe yoga where I actually say like, hey, you broke your toe. Have you tried lifting your toe? That's a pretty good place to start. You know, again, another super simple thing. Same thing, knee pain, ankle, something more specific might ask me to say, hey, stand on that side, stand on one foot for 30 seconds. Can you even do that? You know? And then I'm definitely always going to look at a knee bend, which is basically like someone standing with one foot in front of the other and they just gently, slowly bend their knee. What that's going to show me is pronation and supination of the foot to kind of see if their calcaneus is moving through the gait cycle, see if their midfoot is rotating, because that's going to play a huge role in like the squat ankle mobility, whether their knee's been hurting them, whether they're actually able to push through the ground. If they can't get into that good mid stance and get that knee over their laces, like their hinges, a lot of their other stuff's not going to be great if your foot stays locked up, especially if they're really rigid and supinated. And then like, again, maybe they have a neck issue. So maybe I'll look at a neck CAR that's, again, just taking your neck through a full circle. And then everybody's going to do a cat-cow. So like it's a spinal CAR. It's basically just do a cat-cow like yoga, but like you're trying to move each segment one by one. And that's going to tell me which part of their spine is chunked together, which part they can't move through. So that's kind of the assessment process. I tell everybody like, hey, since you paid a decent amount of money to be here, I'm either going to do an hour or 90 minutes. Sometimes I'll start with an hour and then I'll go to 90 minutes if I need to. And what I'll do is I'll set them up with 2 or 3 exercises to start immediately. And we'll usually spend the last 15 to 20 minutes doing those exercises. So for some people that end up, whether they're going to train with me after that or not, or maybe I get a lot of people that are just like, hey, I've been following on Instagram for 5 years. I'm in town. Can I just do an assessment? So at least like I know that they're going to move in the right direction just with that 1 hour with me. So that's been huge. A little bit of a downside because a lot of times some people will actually solve their issues in that 1 hour and then they don't train, but like it is what it is. There's plenty of people for the next one. And then in terms of what the people are finding, I think you see a lot of hip shifts. I think you see a lot of people with limited hip IR. I think you see a lot of people that don't know how to control their body. I think a lot of people that have never learned to let go. I would say that's probably the biggest one that most people aren't talking about. So like when you have someone that's constantly coaching you to squeeze your glutes, keep your core tight, people basically turn into refrigerators. And you especially would know as an athlete, like you can't play safety squeezing everything in your body. Like you are done. Now, do you need to squeeze everything in your body when you're about to hit someone? Yeah, there needs to be this quick, isometric, unconscious contraction of everything to be able to hit another human. But if you are squeezing your butt trying to run with Calvin Johnson, you are so cooked. You know what I mean? Like you have no shot.
It's already a touchdown, bro.
Exactly.
Call it
Like
up.
you have to flex your hip and your glutes extend your hip. So to tell someone to squeeze their glutes before they go down into a squat, which is hip flexion, is crazy. But for some reason that got perpetuated everywhere. And what I see, again, back to that kickstand hinge, you have so many people that are walking around so tight in the lower part of their butt from just constantly thinking that they need to squeeze their butt to stand, locking their knees, basically tensioning all the time. It's wreaking havoc on their pelvic floor. It's messing with their breathing, and it's just really kind of doing them a disservice from the inside out. And they start to think about like, oh, where's my head? It's like, dude, who cares where your head is when your hips are smushed forward? You know what I mean? Like you're thinking way too far down the line for your posture, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things that people realize with me, and that's a lot where the breath work comes in, you know, just being able to fully exhale and then consciously just like be like, holy shit, I've been squeezing my butt for 20 minutes. Let me let go of it for a second. That can do more for mobility than any stretch, any of the other stuff. And then once you get that down, you gain access to these positions. And then you can layer on your isometrics, your dynamic stretching, your full range of motion strength training. And those are the things that lock in those changes, kind of like save the work. You open the door with the relaxing, letting go. You walk through the door. Once you're inside of it, you're going to end up really locking things in with that harder training.
How long did it take you to get to this space of kind of understanding and knowing like what works for you, but also what works for your clientele base? I mean, because a lot of us start out with, you know, the general certifications, right? You get your CSCS, or you get your, you know, your certified personal training, and maybe you go into some breath work and some other areas. But not everyone kind of, like you said, talked about the older coaches that are kind of stuck in their ways. How did you get out of your own way to make it better for your own clientele space and just be able to learn from others?
Yeah, so I've been doing it for over 10, 11 years. So that's, I think, the biggest thing. I've always been very open minded, very curious. I've also been very like ADD, kind of like I get bored on one specific path all the time. Like I literally dug myself into being the mobility guy so deep that it took me years to climb out of the hole and be the integration guy and be able to like do everything. And it was a tough process. But the thing that really separates me is just reps. So like I've worked with so many different people, and like I think in this age of coaching where you actually have online coaching and even online programming where people are just buying a program, you're not even working with them. A lot of the coaches that people are taking advice from aren't even in the trenches anymore. And some of them weren't in the trenches long enough. So, like, to actually be there, like, even thinking about like a good example of that is like you could write the perfect program, and this dude goes to the gym and he's like, you want me to do the leg extension here and the landmine press that's on the complete opposite side of the gym, and there's no other, there's no other option. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't work. Like your idea of what training is not what it is because you're not there actually working with people. So that was the number one thing that really sets me apart. I think I've had so many reps with so many different people. Earlier in my career, I was super lucky for two things. One of them was working in a physical therapy clinic. So I got to see like this guy who was kind of a mad scientist and was already going against the grain, doing all kinds of different stuff, some really weird stuff, some uncomfortable stuff, but some really beautiful stuff too. And he was figuring out how to put it together. He would go to a weekend workshop, and then on Monday it'd be like, we're going to revamp everything. And I'd be like, all right, I'm here for the ride, and I'm not responsible for it either. So tell me what to do, you know? So that was really big for me. And then also I had FRC, functional range conditioning, is a certification, mobility training. That was very early in my career. And the way that they present their system is through dynamic systems theory. So it was very much in that thought process that we're talking about, of being open and being able to kind of look at how everything interacts and not simplify it down to this is the bicep. It was all about how everything's continuous coming together, thinking about joints as, internal and external rotation instead of just like bring your knee up, bring your knee down, or, hip flexion. So just kind of understanding the deeper components of the body from that way really helped me a lot. And I had so much success with that and differentiated myself. And then the third thing is being in New York City. New York City it's the best. I hate to say it. I know I'm like every other person that was in New York and now in Florida, but like it's so amazing. Like it's just the best. Competition breeds excellence, as you know, as an athlete. And when you have opportunity and range and resources at the same time, you have this perfect melting pot to rise to the top and to be able to find what you need to do to get better. And that's exactly what New York is. If you're willing to grind, you're going to find the right group, the right people, the right clients that can afford you, that can allow you to challenge you. You worked at Goldman Sachs for a while, and like, if you don't think those people are challenging you, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to challenge you, both in how hard it is to work with someone who doesn't know how to stop for 2 seconds, but also in like their intelligence and the little ways they try to get out of things and the way that you had to challenge them back. And just, it was a real great thing to do. So, I mean, it's kind of like the classic waiter thing. Like, I think everybody should work in a restaurant, learn what it looks like to just walk up to a random table and be like, hey, you're on the treadmill. I noticed that your gait was off. Would you like to do a free session? Like most coaches need to learn, which I did that process in Crunch in New York City with the sales manager who had a quota of like $150,000 a month. So like that situation made me good at selling myself, made me good at talking to people, blah, blah, blah. And I think New York City is an example of that, where it's like, if anybody could make it there and go there and actually spend time there, I think it would be a positive. And I totally understand why people want to leave too, because, a
It's a
500
lot going
square,
on. Yeah.
it's a lot. It's not for everybody. But again, I truly think that was one of the reasons that I was able to rise to the top.
Who are you continuing to learn from? Like, who is helping Coach Ian continue to grow and become better? And like, who are some people that you kind of are still learning like different areas from?
Yeah, for sure. I have a bunch of mentors. David Gray Rehab, he's on Instagram stuff. He's one of my favorite people from Ireland. I've learned a ton from him. Alex Effer is another person that I've learned a lot from lately, especially in terms of the biomechanics stuff. Gary Ward has been huge for me in terms of learning about the foot and kind of the closed chain biomechanics of the body has been big for me. And I think one of the big things that happens is when you have a framework and you have principles, you can really learn from anybody. Like, people kind of hate on Instagram, but like if you're following the right people and you understand like a lot of the principles, you're able to really pick up a lot of different things. Bill Hartman's another person I like a lot. He's got his very unique model, very confusing, but again, something that I can kind of step in and get a little bit of good stuff from and then kind of step back out of. So yeah, those would be the main ones that I'm learning from still.
How are you using Instagram to help, your space and other coaches and other athletes continue to learn and grow? And how have you seen Instagram also hurt, or even just social media hurt the industry?
Yeah, I would say that social media, obviously, the easiest example, that's the POV post, right? You have our clients with just unrealistic expectations. Hey, I'm going to do one exercise. The idea that people are sitting online right now on a weekly basis, asking questions and comments, saving posts, not doing any of it, instead of just hiring a coach and being 3 years ahead if they just did hire the right coach. Like I have people all the time. I had some woman the other day ask me like, what do I do when my toes are above ground? Like obviously there was like a language barrier there, but I've talked to this woman so many times. And she's basically asking me like, when I do stuff, my toes lift off. And again, it goes right back to what we talked about with the foot. Foot's not moving well. You're not able to get a good push through the ground. So your weight rocks back, your toes lift up. Super simple, but what am I going to do online? Am I going to tell you that? And then now what are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. But I have a goddamn program that has literally 12 weeks of progressive, like lower limb stuff that you can learn the foot and train yourself. So it's like I've sent it to her 3 times now. She keeps asking these questions. It's like you're not helping yourself at all, right? And the reason that she's not helping herself for maybe not all the blame, but it is on a lot of the coaches. And it is on just not even the coaches, just the general social media of like feeding that monster of like, I got to put 5 new exercises out today or else nobody's going to follow me. You know what I mean? It's like, and it sucks. So how I use Instagram is I try to be authentic. I try to be moral. I definitely hold back a lot, which is something that I'm working on because personally, like I love comedy. I love memes. I love being funny, but like, especially now people are absolutely insane. I'm sure you feel that in Nashville and Florida for the election, right? Whatever side you're on or like me, no side, people are just
I don't even know what's going on, to be honest with you.
Well, good for you. It's crazy. But like, just worrying about offending people really sucks. And like, there's a balance between it. But I think if you're a young coach, especially finding your voice and just like being authentic to yourself would be huge. But I use Instagram in terms of, promoting our business, helping others. There's definitely a lot of good free stuff out there, but I try to provide context around it in terms of, not just the POV, this is going to fix you, but hey, like as much context and nuance as we can fit on Instagram is kind of my goal.
I love it because obviously we found you on Instagram. I went through and saw everything that you're doing. Super informative. So I'm diving more into it, trying to learn a lot more from what you're doing. But Coach, before we get out of here, what's one question you would love for us to ask our next guest going on? So I'll let you know our next guest already is one of the strength and conditioning coaches, assistant director of Olympic sports performance at Southern Methodist University. What is one question you would want us to ask him?
If you were stuck on, if you were going to dinner and you had to get 3 guests, who would you choose?
I like it.
Yeah.
Who would you choose?
Hopefully he says Kobe Bryant. Got to put him in there. Just because we were talking about it before, why don't I put Julius Peppers in there? And then, probably Dave Chappelle.
Hey, that's a lineup right there.
Yeah, I might switch Julius out. You know what? I'll switch Julius out for Theo Vaughn just to like really throw some stuff out there.
Yeah, that would be a wild.
And I'm always keeping Nashville because that's my guy. I love it.
Because Kobe's going to be super straightforward with you guys about everything. Right?
Yeah, and he's gonna be laughing too, which
right.
Would be fun.
And then you got Dave and then Theo. They're going to just say whatever comes to their mind.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be a great dinner. But Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and dropping a bunch of knowledge, guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out Coach Ian and everything that he's doing with Marco Training Systems. Man, there's a lot of knowledge to be learned from. Don't just comment on his post, right? Reach out and actually have a full conversation with him so he can tell you about all his assessment stuff. And maybe you join in what he's doing. But Coach, thank you. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you.